Welcome to the Daily Insider right here on VegasInsider.com and on our YouTube channel. I am Kevin Rogers, and a very exciting end to week one last night in the NFL with the Raiders rallying past the Ravens at Allegiant Stadium in overtime. And the Raiders take the money. Another underdog wins, another underdog covers. And to review last night and to look ahead to week two in the NFL and also some week three college football games. Welcome in for the first time. We bring on Zack Cimini, who is one of the top young handicappers at VegasInsider.com. And Zack, very good to talk to you and have you on the Daily Insider. And last night, crazy game. Raiders win at 33-27. What were your initial thoughts throughout that game and as the game ended?
Well, just a perfect game to have for Allegiant Stadium and the Las Vegas Raiders. It just looked like one of those games where Lamar Jackson didn't have it in him. It looks like the defenses have caught up to him a little bit. They were up 14-0. You would have liked to see them keep that offense going. They had a couple of costly penalties that you can't have on the road. We saw that pass interference when it was 17-10, gave the Raiders a good 30 yards there. And then Trent Cannon had a nice run. I think it was a second or third down, 15-yard run that was called back on a hold. And those were two critical plays for me.
Yeah, and the Raiders last night, they never went away. And it was 14-0 Baltimore out of the gate. And the Raiders came back, and even late when the Ravens took that 24-17 lead, you would have thought, all right, this was done if you had Baltimore. But Derek Carr, even though he was criticized a lot, Zach, through that first half, still the short passing game worked for a while. He hit Ruggs on that third and long and set up the game-tying touchdown. Your thoughts, at least, on Derek Carr and the way he played last night to carry the Raiders to that win?
Oh, just phenomenal game from Carr. It looked like he just stopped going to Darren Waller finally, and everything else opened up for him. He was hitting Ruggs, like you said. Edwards, all his catches were late, I think, in the last series, then in overtime. And he was just hitting players everywhere on the field. The Ravens had no answer, and that's where the injuries come into play for Baltimore. I think that's why we saw that line move from 4.5 down to 4, down to 3.5, in some spots 3.
And now that week one is over with, Zach, 12-4 against the spread, the underdogs. I mean, no one's going to anticipate that, but I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, how surprised were you that many underdogs covered and that many won outright?
I'll say a 9. I've been here for 6 or 7 years, like we discussed before the show, Kevin, and you just don't see that. Usually the lines are sharp right out the gate in the NFL. It kind of reminded me of college basketball, just a little bit off here and there. Even for me, one of my plays that I didn't think was going to be as convincing as it was the Arizona Cardinals +3 against the Tennessee Titans. I thought it was going to be a grinding type of game, and it most certainly wasn't. But you can't overreact. That's the number one thing you and I know being in this business. NFL's number one sport. You can't overreact in week one where you're going to get killed for the rest of September and early October.
Yeah, because looking at some of these underdogs that won, I mean, the Steelers were getting 6.5 at Buffalo, but we know that Buffalo is, obviously very good. They almost made the Super Bowl last year, but Pittsburgh isn't like that much off from them. And you had a lot of these short underdogs that won outright, like you mentioned, Arizona. I was on them too. I thought that line was just too short, and I did not think Kyler Murray would play as well as he did. I don't think anybody thought the Titans would be as bad as they were. Who was the one underdog that really surprised you to win outright in week one?
Surprising? Surprising. I would have to say the Philadelphia Eagles, just the way they played. I mean, that was just a complete blowout on both sides of the football. I think I expected Hurts to struggle a bit. I expected them to win with the running game, but he didn't struggle at all. He was hitting his young wide receivers. The defense played well, and it was one of those from start to finish. And now you have to question Matt Ryan. So I would say the Philadelphia Eagles, but there was a couple teams, but I'll rank the Eagles number one.
Yeah, because I just didn't see Philadelphia playing that well, but also Atlanta to have 2 drives stall. I mean, when you're kicking 20-something yard field goals, Zach, that's a big issue. It's one thing to say, okay, again, 30 or 40-yard field goals, you're getting into your other team's territory and you're getting points, but you would think the Falcons would have done something there. And now Atlanta's a huge underdog at Tampa Bay this week. Let's look at some of the games for week 2 in the NFL, and we'll begin with Thursday night. The Giants and the football team in D.C., obviously Washington now going to Taylor Heineke after Ryan Fitzpatrick got hurt last week with the hip injury. I wasn't a huge Washington fan last year from the standpoint of I think they benefited from playing a lot of not great quarterbacks. Obviously, the NFC East wasn't very good, but now they're a short favorite against the Giants, who did not look very good last week against the Broncos at home. What are your initial thoughts here in this Thursday matchup?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with the Giants. They were ill-prepared offensively to handle the Denver Broncos. One of the worst offensive performances you saw in week one because of the ground game. Saquon Barkley only had 10 carries for 26 yards. Daniel Jones tried his best. He was actually threw the ball pretty well, but they only got one touchdown in the first half, struggled completely in the second half, and Denver took that game over. So for me, anytime you have an early season NFL divisional matchup, you know it's going to be ugly. And that, for me, bodes to the advantage of the Washington football team because they're used to that ugly style. We mentioned it last year. They played 3 different quarterbacks, so they're used to doing this. Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. They're used to having Taylor Heinicke. He came in a big spot last year. His first start in the playoffs against Tampa Bay, played okay. So they're going to game manage him here. You're going to see a lot of Gibson running the football, and they're going to rely on that defense as Ron Rivera is going to make Daniel Jones beat them.
And on the flip side, when you look at this Washington team, they lost twice to New York last year, both in close games, both low-scoring games, and the Giants right now on an 11-1 run to the under. So do you think that keeps up again? We're going to have another low-scoring battle between these two teams?
I do think it's going to be low scoring. I think that's tricky just based on your number that you're 11-1 on the last 12 going under. But I will say about Daniel Jones, this is a stat I dug up last night. 8-20 record as a starter. Half of his wins came against the Washington football team, in which he is 4-0 against them. But we know about his Thursday struggles, Kevin. 2 years ago against the Patriots, it's a big underdog, blown out. And how about that game last year against the Eagles? We had that embarrassing play where he tripped over himself after an 80-yard run.
Yeah, and he will never get over that. Unless he wins a Super Bowl, he will never, ever get over that. Now, let's look ahead to some of the Sunday games and the Raiders and the Steelers in Pittsburgh. And obviously, just so many things to digest in this game, Zach, because the Steelers went on the road. They won at Buffalo. In a sense, double revenge spot. They lost at Buffalo the last 2 years. They're down 10 at the half. They end up winning a big second half for them. They had the punt block return. Ben threw that touchdown pass. Now they're favored against the Raiders, and the Raiders got to go cross-country. We've heard all about, even though the cross-country trip wasn't as big of a deal for some of these teams this past week. The Chargers, the Broncos, the Seahawks all left their time zones, and they were fine this week. But as far as the Raiders go, how do you keep that momentum? You're in Vegas. How do you keep that momentum now to go cross-country for another big game against an AFC foe?
Well, I'll tell you this, both of them were down double digits in week one. I don't think that can carry over to success in week two. So you look for the Raiders, they have to get out early. If they get down 14-0, the Steelers are too disciplined on both sides of the football. We saw them win ugly. Ben Roethlisberger only threw 180 yards. They ran their top rusher 40-something yards. So they know how to win in a variant of scales from much different than the Vegas Raiders. So I think this gives an advantage to the Steelers. They're at home. They've been a good home team over the years, even though they faltered down the stretch last year. They are a good team. So the pressure's going to be on Carr. I think this goes to the advantage of the Steelers.
Yeah, Pittsburgh, a short, less than a touchdown favorite here, but flip from the underdog role. And we know Mike Tomlin's been good as an underdog, but now he's in the favorite role against John Gruden. So we'll see how that one turns out on Sunday. Then we go to Monday night, and everyone wants to see the Detroit Lions on Monday night, don't they? I mean, it feels like, I don't know, we get them on Thanksgiving, we get them on Mondays. We don't want to see the Lions. But they were down big to the 49ers, Zach, on Sunday, and they came all the way back, and they had the ball in San Francisco territory down to 8, but they just couldn't get that tying score. And now they make the trip to Green Bay, where the Packers were completely embarrassed in Jacksonville against the Saints. Aaron Rodgers looked terrible. And now Green Bay, big favorite at Lambeau. I mean, I never liked the whole, trying to take a team like that off a bad loss, laying all these points, because that's the expectation. But do you think that Green Bay goes in there and blows out Detroit, or the Lions keep it close?
I'm going to still assess this one from a point spread standpoint, but you look at Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, you just don't see him begin a season like this. I've seen him before have struggles midseason. He'll have 2 or 3 games where you question maybe this is it for him, but I haven't seen him start a year like this. The pressure is on them. And under Aaron Rodgers, they've only lost a week 1 game 3 times. And each of this in the second week, they've rolled their opponents, won by 7 points or more. I think 7, 13, and 18. So I think that's why we see this big number. Maybe it continues to rise, but the pressure's on. I think we're starting to see a little bit of that mesh not working. We heard about it a couple of years ago with Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers. He wanted out. He still wants out. And we saw this before with Mike McCarthy. So it's a bad combination, especially with them coming off a horrible performance where they just didn't run the ball. LaFleur was off. And Aaron Rodgers, if he has to carry this team by himself, I'm not sure he can like he's done in years past.
Now, Zach, let's take a look at a couple college matchups. And Ohio and Louisiana. Now, the Bobcats came in at 0-2. They lost to your Syracuse Orange in the opener at home, and then inexplicably fell to Duquesne 28-26 as 4-touchdown favorites. So now Frank Solich's team goes on the road to face Louisiana, who it seemed like were a public underdog pick in week 1 at Texas. They lost. We just saw what happened to the Longhorns last week and blown out by Arkansas. And then squeezing past Nicholls State by 3. So both these teams not exactly in great form, but Louisiana nearly a 3-touchdown favorite at home.
Yeah, you see these two teams so often with the MAC on Tuesdays with Ohio, and then the Sun Belt has the Thursday, Friday games throughout the year. So Louisiana Lafayette, they were ranked majority of last year, but what I see from them, Levi Lewis is struggling, fifth-year senior. They don't have the ground game without Elijah Mitchell. Last week only ran for 50-some yards with their top rusher. So definitely questionable that they beat Nicholls by just 3 points, and that week 1 as 9-point underdogs against Texas just didn't have it. So for me, the pressure's on them. I'm not sure what's going on with Ohio. They opened as an underdog against Syracuse. We saw that line move almost 3.5 points, and they obviously didn't come through. So this is going to be a tricky game. It should be interesting to see if Lewis can bounce back here. You'd expect them to score a high amount of points, but you just don't know with how shaky their offense has been.
Yeah, in Ohio, to have that loss at home to Syracuse is one thing, but then to fall to Duquesne, and I'll be 100% honest with you, Zach, I know nothing about Duquesne football, so I can't exactly say, oh, I saw that one coming. But Ohio also had 300 yards of offense as a 4-touchdown favorite in that game, so we'll see how Ohio bounces back if they actually do. And the other game, a couple former Big 8 rivals, and now Nebraska in the Big 10, Oklahoma soon to be in the SEC, but Oklahoma laying 22.5 against Nebraska coming up in Norman on Saturday. And we know about the struggles of the Huskers, at least early in the season against Illinois. They bounced back against Buffalo this past week. And Oklahoma, they squeezed by Tulane a few weeks ago. But Oklahoma here, a heavy favorite, Zach, against Nebraska in an old rivalry game.
Yeah, one thing you can't take away from Oklahoma is they're going to be explosive. They're going to score a lot of points. Even though they didn't cover against Tulane, they scored 40 points last week against Western Carolina, 70 points. So they're ready to keep that offense going. In Nebraska, they just look limited to me offensively. Adrian Martinez, we saw him benched last year. The only thing he's doing well right now is rushing the football. So you have to believe the Sooners defense can have the disguises in place to shut that down a little bit. I'm not impressed with them covering against Fordham and Buffalo. Those were two easy matchups. So for me, it goes back to their week 0 matchup against Illinois, where they looked really rusty and rough. So for me, I would lay the points here with Oklahoma in a big dominating win.
Zack Cimini, you can find his picks at VegasInsider.com. He does a great job with all of his selections, NFL, college, Major League Baseball, now everything in season. And Zach, we appreciate the time. He's live in Las Vegas, and we'll talk to you again soon here in the Daily Insider.
Thanks for bringing me on, Kevin. It was a blast to do our first show.
All right, great. Sounds good, and we'll have him on again soon. Zack Cimini, a very sharp young handicapper that we have at VegasInsider.com, and he has been on the scene for a while now. And he's always, every time I check out the leaderboard, Zach is always up there. And he's coming off a 3-0 week in the NFL. He's very well prepared, and looking forward to having him on the Daily Insider a lot more as we move forward. Now let's take a look at some Major League Baseball for tonight. We didn't hit on a lot of it yesterday, but now we'll hit on it tonight since we have a full card, and you don't have any football tonight, so that's what we'll look at to try to help you win for this evening. And we'll begin in Pittsburgh between the Reds and the Pirates. And Cincinnati has actually owned Pittsburgh of late. The Reds swept the Pirates a little earlier this season, or at least back in August at Great American Ballpark. And I have a number here in Pittsburgh. It's going to give you, since you're tuning in, so I'll give it to you. Pittsburgh is 12-4, their last 16 home series openers, which is a crazy stat for a team that's in last place right now. But they played a little better at home. Now, granted, they are 4-2 in their current homestand against Detroit and Washington. But the key with these young teams that are out of it, who's still trying? And when you look at Pittsburgh, Colorado's played better on the road. We'll talk about them in a few minutes. Kansas City. Minnesota's kind of faltered a little bit. They had a really rough loss to the Yankees yesterday. Baltimore's kind of packed it in. But when you look at young teams, who's still trying is the key, because Pittsburgh has nothing to play for right now. The Reds have everything to play for, considering the fact that they are right in the wild card race. They are currently number 2. Well, the Dodgers are going to get, as we've said before, a wild card spot or win the NL West. Now, the Giants clinched a playoff spot last night, so the Dodgers are first in the wild card. They're up 16.5 games over who's in second. The second place team is the Cincinnati Reds. And right behind the Reds are the Padres and Cardinals, each a half game back. St. Louis is 2.5 back. And even the Mets are 3.5 back. So it's going to be a fight to the end. And the Reds have 3 games against the Pirates coming up at PNC Park, games they cannot afford to lose, where if the Pirates lose them, they lose them. You know, life goes on. Wade Miley is not allowed a run in 2 starts against Pittsburgh this season. But Dylan Peters, who goes for the Pirates, he was drafted by the Marlins, got traded to the Angels, and now is with the Pirates. He actually has been that terrible. 7 earned runs in 4 starts. The Pirates are 2-2 in those games. The Reds coming off a pair of losses to St. Louis, and they've dropped now 5 of 7. So it is a heavy number to lay with the Reds. I know Miley's dominated them, but Pittsburgh at least is showing a little bit of heart here down the stretch. Across the state in Philadelphia, it's the Phillies and the Cubs. And the Phillies, it's about showing heart. It's the opposite of that now, because Philadelphia has dropped 5 of 6. They lost 3 of 4 at home to Colorado, which is beyond inexcusable considering how bad Colorado's been on the road. Colorado's actually played better on the road of late, but that still is something you can't do if you're the Phillies, if you're in the wild card race. And Philadelphia had that 8-game winning streak a while ago that has evaporated, and they have not been good recently. The Cubs just got swept at home by the Giants. I think we can give them a break on that because San Francisco's been so dominant this year. But now the Cubs go on the road behind Adrian Sampson, who hasn't been bad in his few starts. He beat the Reds as a plus 285 dog. He's given up 2 earned runs or less now in a few of his starts. So it hasn't been that bad. He had one shaky outing against the White Sox. But Sampson hasn't been that bad. Kyle Gibson goes for Philadelphia. And Gibson, 10-6 record on the season combined with, Philadelphia and Texas. He's allowed 11 earned runs his last 2 starts, a total of 10 innings, both on the road. At home, he did throw 6 scoreless innings against Arizona as a heavy favorite. I mean, I don't really love this game, to be honest, but you can't deny the fact Philadelphia's just not played well. The Marlins and the Nationals, and the Marlins got a great pitching performance from Sandy Alcantara last night. He had a no-hitter late into the 7th inning before Josh Bell broke it up. And the Marlins got a 3-0 win over Washington. And look, the Nationals, we know, have packed it in. We talk about those teams that are not playing well, that are not good. Those are teams to keep an eye on towards the end if you can find any value in them or not. And Washington is one of those teams that's, kind of given up. Where the Marlins, they're out of it too. They're 6-4 their last 10. So they haven't been bad. They're playing a lot of divisional games of late. Jesus Luzardo goes for the Marlins, and even though his numbers aren't fantastic, his last 3 starts, the Marlins are 3-0. All 3 of them did come at home. In his 2 road starts with the Marlins, he's allowed 9 earned runs and 14 hits in 7 2/3 innings. So that's not good. But at least Luzardo, and one of those losses came. Actually, let me take that back. Let me rephrase that. I messed that one up. In his last 2 losses, it's been 9 earned runs. In his last road start, he's made 1 road start with the Marlins, and that was against the Rockies. He allowed 7 earned runs. So I messed that one up. But his last 3 starts, he's allowed 5 earned runs, all Marlin wins. So he has pitched well, and one of the losses came to Washington at home. So sorry for the confusion there. Now, for the Nationals tonight, it is Marlins stopper Eric Fedde, who in 2 starts this season, Fedde's numbers against the Marlins are pretty crazy. He's allowed 2 runs, 1 earned in 12 1/3 innings against the Marlins this year. But Fedde is winless in his last 3 starts, so tread lightly. The Mets, who are, again, they can't find a way to build any kind of momentum. They beat the Yankees Sunday night, but they get shut out by Adam Wainwright and the Cardinals last night. And St. Louis, who is still in the mix there, along with the Reds and the Padres for that second wild card spot in the National League. St. Louis has won 5 of 6. And they're playing the Dodgers, the Reds, the Mets. They're playing teams that are right in the mix as well. So this is not an easy stretch for St. Louis because they finish off their series with the Mets. They go home to play the Padres, and they go to Milwaukee again. So the Cardinals have their work cut out for them, and the Mets take on the Phillies. They go to the Red Sox. They go to the Brewers. So the Mets – but when you look at the Mets, though, Marcus Stroman goes tonight. He's got a good ERA. His record's not great. The Mets just can't get the back-to-back wins against good teams. They cleaned up against Washington. Congratulations. But against the likes of LA, San Francisco, the Yankees, the Reds, the Braves, these are upper-tier teams. They just can't get anything going in those matchups. So they lose last night by a touchdown to the Cardinals, 7-0. They've allowed in the last 3 games, the Mets, 21 runs. And Marcus Stroman goes tonight. He's 9-12, but an ERA of 2.87. You don't see that often. And for Stroman, he allowed an earned run his last time out, a 3-2 defeat to the Marlins. He was laying 170. Now he's a heavy favorite at home against the Cardinals. Last time he faced the Cardinals, actually, was back in early May. 5 innings, 4 runs he allowed in a 4-1 defeat. That was part of a doubleheader at Busch Stadium. And now he gets them again. And the Cardinals, look, they're coming off back-to-back shutouts. And they're pitching well. It is Jake Woodford on the mound tonight. 2-3 record, 4.28 ERA. He went 4 innings against the Dodgers last time out, 2-1 victory. Went 5 1/3 before that against Milwaukee. It was a 4-0 defeat. He had 1 bad start against Minnesota, but besides that, he's been all right. Stroman's been good at home. That's a heavy number now for the Mets. The Rockies and the Braves, they just met at Coors Field. They split a 4-game set. Now the venue's shifting to Atlanta and Truist Park. Colorado 7-4 their last 11 road games. Pretty impressive job by them, considering their road record right now is 21-51. 66-78. You can't make that up. They're 18 games above 500 at home, 30 below on the road. And John Gray takes the mound opposite Touki Toussaint. And John Gray is winless in his last 6 outings for the Rockies. Last time out against San Francisco, bullpen blew it late. 3 earned runs. It was on a 3-run homer by Brandon Crawford, I believe. And the Giants beat the Rockies 7-4, but he had a 3-0 lead early. Rockies led 4-3 late. Giants beat him in the 9th at Coors Field his last time out. He's 5-1 to the under his last 6 starts. So the unders have been a good play there. He has a couple good road underdog wins this year, a couple against San Diego. He did not face Atlanta when these teams met at Coors Field a little bit ago. Actually, it was early September, Labor Day weekend. The Braves, they're coming off another series win at home against the Marlins, and Atlanta is taking care of their business against these lower tier teams, these non-playoff teams. And Toussaint goes tonight. His numbers not great recently. He was better when he first began this season, but he's gone backwards. 6 innings his last 2 outings. One of them came against Colorado. And he's allowed 5 earned runs, 7 hits. Against Colorado, he gave up a grand slam to Charlie Blackmon, but the Braves came back and won that game 6-5 to get him off the hook. So now he faces them again. And look, Colorado's played a little better, at least on the road recently. The Padres and the Giants from San Francisco. And I did like the Padres last night with Yu Darvish. He's been terrible on the road, but he beat the Giants earlier this season twice at home, and he got racked for 5 runs out of the gate last night. And the Giants just dominated the Padres. San Diego, who was supposed to be that second team forget the National League West, is in the National League this year. And they may not even be in the playoffs when it's all said and done. Nobody saw San Francisco coming. Nobody thought Milwaukee would play as well as they have. And in the East, the Braves started slowly, but they have become the class of that division. But San Diego, 5 runs the last 4 losses. And they've given up 17 runs the last 2 games. Now, that was with Blake Snell and Yu Darvish. So Jake Arrieta go and say, can't be any worse, right? Never know with him. Anthony DeSclafani goes for the Giants. DeSclafani's numbers have taken a little bit of a dip in the second half as opposed to in the first half where he was pitching out of his mind. Arrieta's winless in his last 10 starts with the Cubs and with the Padres. But, man, you go from like a pick'em last night to San Francisco laying 180. Seems a bit steep. Arizona scored early on the Dodgers last night, but then LA just ran them. And the Dodgers are trying to keep up with the Giants, trying to get that NL West championship. I mean, shoot, if they get to a 1-game playoff with Max Scherzer, I think they'll be all right. He's pitching like a Cy Young winner right now. The Dodgers and the D-backs tonight continue their series at Dodger Stadium. Luke Weaver and Tony Gonsolin on the mound. Arizona won the final 2 at Seattle, but then they lost 5-1 last night. Zach Gallen, again, another loss for him against Clayton Kershaw. And the Dodgers 4-0 now on this current homestand. And the number was put out there that after they face San Diego, the Dodgers normally struggle. Well, that wasn't the case last night. They won 5-1. Gonsolin, he'll go 3 innings maybe. Now that Kershaw's back, you go with Urias, Buehler, Scherzer, Kershaw, and then whoever the number 5 is, just going to be a bullpen game because Trevor Bauer's not coming back. So the Dodgers are going to go that direction for the remainder of the season. And LA a very heavy favorite tonight. 2 games in Minnesota between the Twins and the Indians. And what a brutal loss that was if you had Minnesota yesterday. I think it was a very good spot to take them in. Up 5-0. And the Yankees come back. Aaron Judge hits a 3-run homer, makes it 5-5. Gary Sanchez has the walk-off hit in the 10th. It's a bad one. It really is to be up 5-0 on the road, plus 180, whatever it was, and the Yankees end up coming back and winning that game. That really, it hurts. It does. And if you had the Twins, I feel bad for you. I really do. In those games, that's where the better team didn't win. I don't say the better team, the Yankees are better than the Twins, but the better team that day, the Twins were up 5-0, should have closed that one out, and they didn't. So the Twins are now back at home. So they have a makeup game with the Yankees yesterday. They go to New York for 1 day. Now they go back to Minnesota after they lost to Kansas City on Sunday. Now they get 2 with the Indians. And the Indians, who were playing very well, they're 2-8 their last 10. They've totally fallen apart. They scored on that homestand against the Twins and the Brewers They scored a grand total of 10 runs in 7 games. They got no hit in one game by Corbin Burns and Josh Hader. They gave up 10 runs or more in 2 of the games to Milwaukee. The Brewers just completely dominated them. And what's funny is Cleveland went up 2-1 in the first inning Friday, and they had either bases loaded or 2 runners on. They really could have not put the game out of reach, but taken a nice lead. And they just couldn't do it, and they left the door open for the Brewers, who ended up obviously blowing them out. But the Indians have been bad recently. They have. And Tristan McKenzie, who pitched well against the Twins his last time out, 1 earned run in 6 innings, 7 strikeouts, 3-0 loss to the Twins. That was on the most recent homestand. McKenzie's put up really good numbers. 3 earned runs allowed in his last 4 starts for Cleveland. And he was knocked around by the Twins earlier this season when they played. And he's trying to still figure out a way how to beat them. So Minnesota's lost 4 or 5, and Joe Ryan on the mound tonight. Ryan actually beat McKenzie in that game 3-0, went 7 innings, allowed 1 hit. And he is a short favorite here in game 1 of this series at Target Field. Then they'll play game 2, another 7-inning game, and that's Logan Allen and Charlie Barnes, a couple lefties on the mound in that one. And for Logan Allen, he has a poor record, 1-6, 6.86 ERA. The Indians have won 1 start of his since April. Gave up 5 earned runs against the Twins last time he faced them at home. That was against Bailey Ober in the opener of that series. 5-2, Minnesota won. So now he's a short dog today. And for Charlie Barnes, his numbers aren't great either. 0-3, 6.59 ERA. So I don't know how you make a case for either one of those guys going into that one. The Yankees, look at that number. Garrett Cole's on the mound tonight for the Yankees against the Orioles, and he's laying 335. Cole left his last start with an injury, and now he's facing a Baltimore team that, they've waved the white flag. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, to say that. But Cole, 3 2/3, 3 runs, laying 230 in a 5-1 loss to Toronto his last time out. That snapped a 4-game winning streak for Cole. But now he's Cole's had some heavy losses this year. He lost a 230 favorite against Toronto, a 270 favorite against Kansas City, a 280 favorite against Detroit, 190 against Tampa Bay, 255 against Texas, 190 against Houston, 240 against the Yankees, 190 against Toronto. So Cole's had a lot of heavy defeats this year. He has taken on Baltimore only once, interestingly enough. Laid 300 back at home in April, 7 innings, 13 strikeouts. So you would think that he would bounce back tonight. If you're taking this game either way, I think you're nuts. The Rays and the Blue Jays in Toronto, and the Blue Jays, the hottest team in baseball. They currently are the wild card leaders in the American League. Did not see that coming a few weeks ago. Thought Toronto was done. Good young team, couldn't get over the hump, but they have gone on this incredible run over the last 2-3 weeks. 15 of 17 they've won, Toronto. Pretty impressive. They've been very good at home. They blew out the Rays last night. Jose Barrios goes tonight for the Blue Jays. He's seeking his 12th win. He's 3-0 his last 3 starts. He beat the Yankees as a dog last time out. That was on Thursday. I think a lot of people missed that game. That was opposite the Cowboys-Buccaneers game. But Toronto won that game 6-4 at Yankee Stadium. And the Blue Jays, look, they're red hot at home. Somebody pointed this out, which, again, is not really a sports betting nugget, but I found this interesting. So the Rays and the Blue Jays have now played in 4 different venues this year. They played in Tampa, St. Pete. They played there. They played in Dunedin. They played in Buffalo, and they played in Toronto. It's the first series the Rays have played in Toronto all year because they played a few series already in Florida on the road and in Buffalo. So now they're playing in a different venue, and Tampa Bay is at Toronto for the first time since 2019. Drew Rasmussen actually has decent numbers recently for the Rays. He's not going to go long, maybe 4 or 5 innings, but he's given up 1 earned run a lot of those games. But Barrios, though, he is a favorite in that game tonight between the Blue Jays and the Rays. The Battle of Texas, the Astros and the Rangers from Arlington, and Houston dominated last night in the opener of that series, 15-1. And again, the Jake Odorizzi lasted an inning and a third, but yet Houston picked up the victory, and the Astros now have won 5 of 7. They're, again, in control of the American League West. They'll be fine. The win actually the loss for the Rangers, they were on a 6-1 run before that loss, and that was on the road, taking 2 at the Angels, taking 2 at Arizona, winning the final 2 at Oakland, and then it just blew up because Spencer Howard has not been good for the Rangers. He was a guy they got from the Phillies in the Kyle Gibson deal. He just hasn't been good at all. And Texas will send out Jordan Lyles tonight. He's had some flashes this year. He hasn't been great against the Astros. Was a plus 160 dog his last time out at Arizona, 3-1. Lyles has had a couple of these outings this year. 7 innings, 3 hits, and earned run. He went 7 innings, gave up an earned run at Boston back a few weeks ago. Texas is 3-1 his last 4 starts, so he hasn't been that bad. I know he's a heavy dog tonight opposite Zach Greinke, but Greinke's road number is still fantastic, 6-1, 2.89 ERA. He did get knocked around by the Rangers last time he faced them, laying 215, 4 innings, 6 earned runs. So we'll see if Greinke rebounds tonight. The Astros are 1-5 in Greinke's last 6 starts. The Athletics and the Royals in Kansas City. And a couple numbers here in this game as Oakland favorite, obviously. Royals 7-1 their last 8 series openers, including this past weekend at Minnesota. 14-6 the Royals are their last 20 as an underdog. That could be home or away. Oakland is 4-9 their last 13 on the road. Now, Frankie Montas has pitched well. His last 13 starts, 2.22 ERA. And he's been basically the best arm in the A's staff. Chris Bassett, who knows when he's coming back after he took that line drive to the head against the White Sox. And Montas right now is he's the guy for the Athletics, as he has pitched very well. Kashawn Minaya, he struggled. And Oakland, not great on the road recently. Now, Jackson Kowar, who goes for Kansas City, the former Florida Gator, he has not been great. The only good news is his last 2 starts, he's gone 6 innings apiece, but he has not picked up a win yet for the Royals. Now, back to Montes, where when they faced each other, the A's and Royals in Oakland earlier this year, the only loss came with Montes on the mound opposite Mike Minor. The Royals won 6-1. So keep that in mind with that matchup. The Angels and the White Sox from Chicago, and the White Sox heavy favorite tonight. Packy Naughton, one of my favorite names out there. He takes the mound for the Angels, and right now, don't know who the White Sox starter is going to be, but Chicago, a very heavy favorite. And the White Sox taking 2 of 3 from the Red Sox this past weekend at home. So Chicago's been shaky of late. White Sox can afford to coast right now in the AL Central. Maybe not overall from a home field advantage standpoint, but just in the AL Central, they're fine. And they haven't won back-to-back games this month. So that's a little bit of a concern probably for the White Sox. But again, they're a beat-up team. Lance Lynn did come back. The White Sox last game out against the Red Sox, he went 5 innings. They're just trying to keep it together. The White Sox try to stay somewhat healthy. It'll be a shame if they can't be healthy in the postseason because they've had a really good year. And they face the Angels, who continue their road trip. They're 2-3 so far. They dropped 2 at Houston this past weekend. The Red Sox and the Mariners in Seattle, and couple numbers here, a couple negative numbers on Boston. Well, the Mariners beat the Red Sox last night 5-4. Boston is 3-14, their last 17 on the road against left-handed starting pitchers. They face Tyler Anderson tonight. The Red Sox are also 1-6 in Nathan Eovaldi's last 7 starts on the road. Eovaldi's home numbers have been fantastic. His road numbers, not so great. And the only win during that span came against Cleveland in extra innings. Seattle, meanwhile, 11-5, their last 16 as a home dog. And Tyler Anderson goes tonight. Mariners are 5-1 his last 6 starts. So the Mariners, look, they're right there in the wild card race. They are not going away. They're 2 back of the final spot, which is occupied by the Yankees and the Red Sox. And Toronto's right ahead of them. So Seattle is actually pulled in front of Oakland. Isn't that amazing? Who would ever thought before this year that the Mariners would be in second place in the American League West on September 14th with 2 weeks left in the season? But good job by Seattle. Granted, negative run differential, but positive in the win-loss category. So that's really all that matters. And the final game to look at, only interleague game, the Battle of the Peraltas, Freddie and Willie tonight in Detroit. It's the Brewers and the Tigers, a couple old American League Central rivals from way back when. But Willie Peralta, remember, was with the Brewers for a while, had some good years there. He's in Detroit now. Freddie Peralta, who was the number 3 behind Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff, he's kind of fallen off a bit. I mean, you're getting guys like Adrian Hauser, Eric Lauer. They're almost jumping Peralta now in that rotation in Milwaukee. I mean, Milwaukee's got a loaded pitching staff, so that's very helpful for them. And a pretty good lineup. I mean, Milwaukee, not to like go crazy, but if you got Milwaukee and San Francisco in a series or Milwaukee and LA in a series, I wouldn't call it, I wouldn't say the Brewers wouldn't have a shot because they have the pitching that can hang with these teams. They have a little bit of offense too. So that's the good news. The Brewers' offense has actually been better than what we saw at least earlier in the year. So the Brewers laying 210 here against Detroit. Freddie Peralta has not been great recently. Willie has actually been all right at home. Detroit's 4-0 his last 4 starts at Comerica Park. And the Tigers coming off a series win over Tampa Bay this past weekend. So that's a look at Major League Baseball for this Tuesday, September 14th. And again, very busy time. College football resumes Thursday. NFL resumes Thursday. Giants and the football team in D.C., and we'll see who could lead their team to victory, Daniel Jones or Taylor Heineke, exactly what the NFL wanted. After you had Cowboys-Bucks, then you get Giants and Washington in Week 2 on Thursday night. It always feels that way. There's always a not so great Week 2 matchup in the NFL on a Thursday night. My thanks to Zack Cimini for joining us to break down NFL and college football. Very happy to have him on the Daily Insider. We'll have him on again soon. I am Kevin Rogers. Thank you so much for watching this edition of the Daily Insider. We'll be back with you coming up tomorrow at noon. If you missed any of the Daily Insider, you can always catch it on VegasInsider.com later in the day. We will have it up and also on our YouTube channel. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. And as always, best of luck with your bet.